How's everybody doing out here? This is Duane Fletcher with Fletcher Community Media. Okay, some of you may know me by the books that I write. You see me talking about this stuff around town, um, and at the city council meetings, and you see me talking about it online, of course, in my podcast that I'm doing right now. But these are some really good books. These are some of my older stuff. Codename Lionfish. They caught a Chinese spy on the military base here in town. uh Dance of the Mongoose talks about the origin, the first weeks before the lockdowns that the coronavirus forced everybody into and stuff like that. This talks about some of the events that took place right before the coronavirus lockdowns, that and the quarantines that everyone was forced into a couple of years ago. Dance of the Mongoose. And this one is Fox Hunt, one of my favorite ones. This talks about some of the people at the power company here in town at JEA, basically trying to sell the power company and things like that. So this is a pretty good book also. And I think I still think to this day that they learned those moves from some of the Russian guys that they're possibly doing business with. I have my own beliefs that I think that some of the problems that they're having has to do with the propane contractors that they may or may not be involved with that are Russian. Oh, excuse me. As you know, um, some of you may know there was a huge cyber attack in Jacksonville Beach, has to do with the power companies and stuff like that. And it seems to me that the cyber attacks that's coming from Russia appear to be purposely targeting some of these power infrastructures because they're familiar with this computer system that because they are familiar with the computer system as a vendor, which means that they're selling propane or natural gas to the power company, or something like that. I'm not saying that that's what's going on, but it appears that way. And I'm a conspiracy theorist, and I dig through all of this stuff, even though they try and call me crazy at times. I remember one of the last times they tried to call me crazy, but they had to turn around and kick the door in at this place, this warehouse that the character is held hostage in at this one. So. Um, Shout out to the FBI and Homeland Security for finally waking up and and stop discounting this type of information just because a black person wrote it and things like that. So, thank you. Um, so here's some of my new stuff right here too. But it appears to me that how what happened is that these cyber attacks on these power companies here in Jacksonville are happening because the Russians are apparently familiar with their computer system because some of them might be possibly be vendors that sell propane and propane equipment to the power companies and stuff like that. So I know what the issue was with this was that Homeland Security kicked the door in at this warehouse that I was talking about here because they were looking for spy equipment. They're looking for Chinese spy equipment where or something like that where one some little device or something that's attached to the equipment has a bunch of different functions and does all kind of different stuff. So it's probably the same thing, except for this time, instead of solar equipment, it's probably propane equipment where there's some little device that has some type of back door that they can hack into or something like that. um and I've talked to one of the news reporters, Channel 4. Shout out to Channel 4 because I talked to one of their news reporters about it, and he's really been bird dogging this issue since day one. He has a bunch of stories, a bunch of interviews with some of the JEA CEOs that were on trial, and but that's what I think is going on. I think it has to do with somebody that's familiar with their computer system. Um, and that's probably how the Russians, they obviously have some contact or dealings with some of the Russians that have probably installed backdoors to their computer systems and allows them to shut stuff down, steal information, put it on the dark web. And I'm gonna tell you, I think is possibly there's going to be some type of espionage, and they're stealing identities and putting it on the dark web and stuff like that. There's probably a cover where they're going to commit some type of espionage, but the clues are going to lead back to some innocent person that was just trying to pay the goddamn light bill. Okay, that's how that kind of stuff works. They might have put it on the they might have put the customer information on the dark web just as cover, you know. But I'm a conspiracy guy. I dig through conspiracy theories. I'm not saying that's what's going on. I'm not saying that's what's going on. But but if you dig through these conspiracies, that's what it looks like happened. Okay, all right. So let's talk about some of my new stuff I got here. Okay, let's see. Let's start with this one. The Nibble Next talks about these twin Russian hitmen that came to Jacksonville. These twin Russian hitmen that basically came to Jacksonville, and they snuffed out a bunch of their own guys because they thought they were running hot, and then they chopped up this other guy named Duane, and it was a bunch of different stuff that happened. But the police finally got him. I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's a really good book. It's called The Nibble Necks. Um, this one right here is called The Battle of Fletcher. This is the Battle of Fletcher. This the arrows. This talks about Napoleon uh campaign versus Russia 200 years ago, in contrast to what's going on in Ukraine right now today. And this is a really good action adventure novel. Um, it's kind of like if I had to describe it, if I had to describe it, I would say it's like Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, except for the Russians are the bad guy now. So the Russians, they got to beat the Russians to these different clues and treasure and stuff like this. A really good, really good action novel. Um, and one of the things I want to say too, add to this, a little bit of real history, that basically you wouldn't think that this kind of stuff goes on, like what you see in Raiders of the Lost Ark, but uh, there was these Russian reporters that tried to basically argue their way past the guards in France at the War Museum in France, that they tried to break in because they think that there's some type of possibly because they think that there's some type of uh, scripted battle plan that Napoleon had that helped him beat the Russians repeatedly over and over and over again until he reached Moscow. But you never know. The Russians might actually think that there's something like that going on because they tried to break into the War Museum in France for real. It happened. And this was like maybe maybe about 2 years ago. So this was a while ago, okay? But it was right after the invasion. Right after they invaded Ukraine, they tried to break into the War Museum in France, and they got into the big argument with the French soldiers that guard the place and stuff like that. It's a mess. So this is the other one. This is the one that's causing all the controversy right here. The Black Hand by Duane Fletcher. This is a really good book. Talks about a tennis pro that allegedly doubles as an assassin for the KGB. Okay, and this is a really good book. It's got a lot of it's got like political scandals in it, and talks about a lot of history that has to do with the Black Hand in Serbia. They're the people that's basically started World War I when they assassinated Franz Ferdinand. And this is a really good book also. And I just want to let everybody know I got a chapter 2 coming out. Okay, there was so much information and that was bubbling up like a volcano. That basically there was enough material for a chapter 2. So chapter 2, the Black Hand chapter 2, El Nino is coming out very soon. Um, I think last time I talked to you, I was about 5 chapters in writing it, and now I'm 10 chapters in writing it, and there's still more to be said. So I think I'm gonna go by maybe 12 to 14 chapters on the part 2, which is gonna be really really good. But it's called The Black Hand Chapter 2, El Nino, and it's going to be a really, really good book. So if you get a chance to check them out, blurb.com, 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 Duane Fletcher, DuaneFletcher, Duane Fletcher, blurb.com. Just look it up. And The new stuff is unlocked so you can preview it because I unlocked the new stuff. You don't have to purchase it. You can, read through it read through it. They got a pretty good app here. Let me see if I can show it to you. Let's see here. Duane Fletcher BLURB.com. And let's see. You go to the website. I don't know if you can see it on here, but the website is like a really bad glare coming through here. But you go to the bottom here where it says preview, and you click preview, and that's what comes up the book, and then you could thumb through it. You can thumb through the book. I don't know if you can see that, but you can thumb through it if you look at it on the website. There it is. Okay, so you can look at it, and then you can turn the pages, and then you can thumb through it and read it. It's a really good book. But if you preview it, you can preview it without having to purchase it because I have it unlocked so that the publishers that I'm looking at, the publishers that I've queried can read it, instead of you having, a lot of people they send the publishers all kind of material and stuff like that. They send the publishers a ton of material, and they it's hard sometimes to print out 100 copies of the same thing and then send 100 different publishers send off 100 different copies to 100 different publishers just so they can read it. So what I did was I I have it on here. I have it on here on my phone and on the website so that the publisher can preview it. So wish me luck. Wish me luck. Please wish me luck that I end up getting like a book deal, or maybe somebody might buy some of my material so that they can film it into a movie or a TV show or something. Actually, I'm backlogged. I got so much material that I have so much material that basically I'm backlogged. That I got stuff I need to be writing. Um and now let's talk about the podcast. Um the podcast I want to talk about today has to do with one of the first podcast topics I want to talk about is what's going on in Germany. Germany has been like leaking information here and there and stuff like that, and hopefully it'll stop. It's getting ridiculous now because the last leak has to do with two German members of the German Air Force were talking on the phone in Thailand, and they were talking on the phone in Thailand about Ukraine, and one of the German officers said that he believes that British troops are already in Ukraine and that no one knows it, and then but nobody knows if this is true or not. No, of course, no one knows if this is true. Um, uh, but if it is, it's a really big leak. And then they talked about the Taurus missile. They talked about, the thing of why they want the Taurus missile is because it flies towards the target and then it goes up into the air and then it comes down straight down on top of the target. And it's what's called a bunker buster. Like if there's like some kind of underground building or something like that, the bunker buster goes through the dirt, then through the concrete into the building, and it's a bunker buster, and then it detonates. But that's why they wanted to use it. And they was talking about using it on a bridge, the Kerch Bridge that unites Russia and Ukraine. But they don't want that bridge there because then it's hard to take Crimea back if the Russians keep rolling across that same bridge, bringing in equipment. So the bridge that connects them has to be destroyed from a military standpoint if they ever want to take Crimea back. Um, you know, and hopefully they'll get it done. My heart goes out to the people of Ukraine. I'm sad that they had to suffer through something like this, an invasion, but it's not over with. It's not over with because the Russians have given NATO a list of countries that they want to take over in Eastern Europe. You know, they want Finland, they want Sweden, they want Germany, they want Poland, they want Moldova, they want Lithuania, they want Latvia. It's a long list of different countries. You know, of course, it'll take 100 years for them to do that. You know, at the rate that they're going, I don't think they're going to. They're having problems in Ukraine as it is, let alone trying to start a second or a third theater. They would get beat silly. You know, and let's see. The thing is, what I want to talk about here is that this leak happened in no, it was, excuse me, Singapore. The leak happened in Singapore. I believe that's in Thailand. Okay, so the Singapore Air Show was February 20th through the 25th. It was a couple of months ago. Okay, the air show ended the 25th of February. 2 weeks later, 2 weeks later, around March 5th, the Russians leaked this audio tape that they had been monitoring the German Air Force phone calls. And they were saying, talking about the missiles that they may or may not send to Ukraine, and talking about the British troops possibly being in Ukraine already and things like that. And right after this leak, right after this leak, 2 weeks later after the leak, there was a boat that crashed in Maryland. Okay, and the boat was flying a Singapore flag. So, you know, it's almost as if the leak caused the crash. I don't want to say, but possibly it looks, the timing is that 2 weeks after the phone call leak, the boat crashed into the bridge and destroyed the Francis Scott Bridge in Maryland. Okay, so it looks like the Russians heard the phone call, and then they got on the phone and they asked this person that was driving the boat to crash into the bridge and destroy it. So they completely destroyed the Francis Scott Bridge in Maryland. They completely destroyed it. And now, you know, this is not the 1600s where everyone stands around and go, ooh, you know, they need to start paying attention to this, because it looks like the leak caused the bridge. You know, the leak caused the destruction of the bridge, and this was their, like they were sending a message. Well, you know, yo, hey, you don't destroy my bridge, I destroy your bridge, and you know, and basically this was what it looks like. You know, like this was the Russian response to the plot to destroy the Kerch Bridge in Russia. So at the same time, you know, these events are starting to take place at the same time, and which is like they really need to start paying attention to this. But I think it is possible that they probably need an expansion on what they call the Jones Act. Okay, the Jones Act is a maritime law for the United States, concerning the United States, that basically any cargo ship, container ship, or oil tanker that comes to United States waters has to have American sailors on it, also in working with the people that own the boat or whatever. And they possibly need to expand the Jones Act to take up some type of surveillance um, into these type of plots, because it's in intelligence work. They say in intelligence work that there is no such animal as coincidence like that. There's no such animal as coincidence like that, where the Russians get angry about somebody trying to destroy their bridge, and then a ship is dispatched from the same place where the leak occurred. The leak occurred in Singapore. Next thing you know, 2 weeks later, a ship from Singapore destroyed the bridge in Maryland, Baltimore, Maryland. So, um, they need to start paying attention. And they, and like I said, they probably need to expand on the Jones Act to where they start doing surveillance into these type of plots, and to determine um who's been talking to the Russians, who's getting those John Wick gold coins from the Russian guy still, where he would crash a bridge, or diamonds. I think that's what it is now. The new thing is diamonds. They've been talking about Russia has been the government. Russian government has been purchasing diamonds because they're having trouble selling them. So they have a big huge Russian company that 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 mines for diamonds, and they've been having trouble selling some of it because of the sanctions. So the Russian government's been purchasing it themselves. So they might be giving out diamonds now, along with those little John Wick movie gold coins, for these guys to do all of this dirt for them and stuff like that. But basically, that's what it is. And I talked about this on one of the other podcasts, earlier podcasts. The only coin that's out there now is a gremlin coin. There's no more there's no more uh super secret cool whatever you think it is, for those of you that dabble in that kind of stuff. Anytime that Russian guy talks to you now, he's going to want you to do some type of gremlin shit for him, and you need to stop it, because you're going to end up in jail for treason, if America calls you, or worse, if somebody else catches you overseas and stuff like that. This spying, that's what it is, spying, and doing dirt for the Russians and stuff like that. Hopefully they'll stop. But I believe they need to expand the Jones Act. The Jones Act, maritime law, needs to be expanded into some type of surveillance for subterfuge and things like that. And these plots that mysteriously come up. So like I said, nobody's going to be mesmerized by this. They're just going to start wondering which one of you Nimrods is still talking to this Russian guy. And that why are you doing stuff like this to us, for the Russians and stuff like that? Personally, I think that Ukraine is going to win. And like I said, my heart goes out to them for them having to go through something like this. But I think that the other countries should be safe, and that they should end the whole entire ordeal in Ukraine, and that they need to push the Russians out. They got the Russians. The Russians just got America kicked out of Niger. The Russians just got France kicked out of Mali. The Russians just got NATO kicked out of Mali. The Russians are in Sudan trying to kick out American forces also, and NATO forces. Um, and the thing is that because he's working behind the scenes like that in all these other places, the simplest thing to do is to get NATO forces together in Europe and kick him out of Europe. I mean, kick him out of Ukraine. That's the best thing to do. Kick him out of Ukraine. That way, if he loses in Ukraine, it'll he's not going to look twice at Finland or Poland, because I'm pretty sure that Poland's going to deliver the same caliber of beating that he took trying to take Kiev, which is basically urban warfare, and his Walla game was not up to date. Um, he tried to take Kiev with those 50-year-old tanks. He got beat real bad. Same thing's going to happen in Poland, um, and Finland, I'm pretty sure. So, I mean, the Russians should abandon this. They're living off a dream of what they once thought Russia was, and they're never going to get it back. You know, it's like I lost my house once. I used to live in Durkeeville. Um, I used to live in Durkeeville, and I lost my house once, and I was unemployed, having trouble finding a job, things like that. But the bottom line is, if I go back over there right now and knock on the door and say, "Hey, I want my house back," or I don't have any money, but I have a gun, they would call the cops on me. That's ridiculous. They would, that's what's going to happen. Is that Russia has to um forced this white slavery upon Europe. And another thing that I noticed, that there's a lot of people talking about the Russian church. The Russian church is allegedly trying to promote some kind of white supremacism, with some of the white supremacism people in America, and with the white supremacism people uh, that have to do with Europe and stuff like that. And Russia's the main one talking about this because they're losing, and this is just this is bull crap, man. It's he's losing. So basically, because you have to think about what happens as he marches forwards. Okay, so basically, to take Poland, he has to win in Ukraine, and then he has to absorb their natural resources. He has to absorb their materials and their natural resources to replenish his ranks. Okay, he needs new tanks. Needs new tank factories. He has to absorb their natural resources and things like that. Then he can march into Poland. Okay, once he marches into Poland to take Germany, he has to absorb Poland's um, natural resources, which means that each one of these countries he marches through is going to create a form of white slavery. So, for them to be discussing white supremacism, they're ignoring the fact that the people of Ukraine will become enslaved by the Russians to to churn out churn out new tanks. The people in Poland then become enslaved so that they can churn out new tanks for the Russians. Then I think last time this happened, they say they was paying them with vodka and potatoes or something like that. That's a form of white slavery, dude. If you're not paying attention, that's what that is. That's a form of white slavery. Um, then, of course, to take Germany, he will have to absorb Poland's resources to churn out new tanks. And okay, what happens to Germany? This Germany has become a business juggernaut over the last years. They have Mercedes, they have BMW, they have Adidas, they have Puma. You know, what do you think is going to happen once Russia takes over Germany? You know, uh, Puma will be churning out uniforms. Adidas will be churning out boots for the Russians. You don't continue after this. It's over with. Your business, your capitalistic achievements have to take a back seat to the Russian military so that he can keep each one of these different places that he takes over. Okay. Um. Now, of course, there was nobody doing podcasts 600 years ago when a lot of this stuff was going on. But basically, if he takes over Germany, what do you think is going to happen? There's no businesses there. No, each one of these businesses becomes absorbed. Mercedes ceases to exist. Now they have to help the Russians churn out tanks. That's basically what happens. Um, you, f- I understand what's been going on because the the Germans have been basically uh told that they were wrong about warfare and things like that for many, many, many years. So they go along to get along with some of these policies, like and that are coming from Eastern Europe and from Russia and stuff like that. And but if Russia marches into Germany, he's not going to just shake hands and say carry on. He's going to absorb your businesses and your resources for himself so he can further his military. And let's say he stops in Germany, he has to hold what he has. He has to make new provisions for himself. But that's all I had to say about that. But but they need to expand the Jones Act. That has to do with this maritime law because that's what it looks like happening. It looks like that basically the Russians intercepted a phone call to Germany by another German military official, and then next thing you know, they was talking about destroying a bridge in Russia. 2 weeks later, bam, the bridge in Maryland is destroyed by a ship from Singapore where this leak occurred. And There's no two ways about it. It's just like cause. It's like cause and effect. I mean, a blind man can see that there has to be some kind of correlation. I don't believe it was an accident. It looks like it was done on purpose. Um, so we need to start paying attention. So that's all I had to say about that. But I want to say something else that's going on in Israel now. Um, they say that Israel is starting to pull out troops from Gaza Strip, which is a good thing because no one wants there to be World War III in the Middle East where these guys end up shooting nuclear missiles at each other, and some of them are landing on oil fields. Get a grip, get over yourself. You're gonna split the damn planet in half, shooting nukes at oil fields and stuff like that. It's getting ridiculous. So but what they're saying is now is that Israel is pulling out of Gaza Strip, and they've only have like one brigade left that's there inside Gaza Strip, and they say that they're going to only with a brigade is like 3 to 5,000 troops. Take give or take a few platoons, but um they're pulling out, which is a good thing. So I think that this is what they should have been doing to begin with, because they say there is these focused intelligence fed raids, which means that they're only going to send in certain platoons who are looking for a specific terrorist or something like that. So that's what they should have been doing to begin with. Instead of bombing the whole place like that. That was ridiculous. And I'm pretty sure NATO is going to have some words for them about the genocide that occurred, because they say I think like maybe about 1,500 people were killed in Israel, but 33,000 were killed on the Gaza Strip. And this looks to me like some type of land dispute, like they possibly want the Gaza Strip for themselves, and something like that, and that's why they really did it. Or maybe they wanted to distract everyone from what was going on in Russia. But actually, I think it was the Russians that wanted to distract everyone from Europe. Um, and this went on for months and Sundays. That basically everybody was praying for Israel. Everyone was praying for Israel and things like that. However, some anomalies began to arise. Like Israel, they say that Israel military was calling. The, Hold on for a second here. They said that the Israeli military was calling the Danish military. They said that the Israeli military was calling the Danish military and asking for plane parts so that they could bomb the Gaza Strip more and more and more. And the Danish military told them no. Like, I cannot give you, because and I'm pretty sure in their mind the Gaza Strip is a very small place, and how can I give you plane parts when the Russian guy's standing right there next door? The Russian guy is right there next door, and so I can't give you plane parts because I might need them myself. I might need the plane parts myself. Um, so the Danish military told them no. I don't know if this is true or not. Some of you might look some of this stuff up for yourselves, but it looks like that's what started the ball rolling to where they started to prioritize these different battles that are going on, whether Ukraine is more important than Israel, or Europe has to watch out for themselves first before they help Israel, or splitting up of the money. That I know some of the Republican senators here in America, they argued about setting up a separate fund from Ukraine, and because they wanted to dwarf the money that was given to Ukraine, because they have a lot of wealthy donors and stuff like that. But uh it is what it is. So But they're pulling the troops out. So that's a good thing that Israel is starting to pull their troops out. Now, I know the United Nations, they just voted on a Chapter 5 resolution, which demands immediate ceasefire. Okay, so that's probably what um what also was a catalyst for them to start pulling the troops out, because the ceasefire apparently is they didn't think it was going to pass. So the ceasefire has passed. A couple of weeks ago, the ceasefire passed, and I think it was yesterday or the day before they started pulling troops out. So that's a good thing, because what could happen here is that this Chapter 5 resolution that the United Nations voted on could possibly turn into a Chapter 7. Okay, and if the Chapter 5 turns into a Chapter 7, there's going to be a problem. That it means that NATO would have to go in and fight Israel and push Israel out of Gaza Strip, and then take up a position where they begin to police the Gaza Strip themselves instead of letting Israel police the Gaza Strip, because there's been abuses, very bad abuses reported of the Israeli soldiers treating the people on Gaza like really, really badly and stuff like that. So, um, who knows what could happen? Um, they could possibly turn that Chapter 5 resolution into a Chapter 7. Chapter 5 resolution is the ceasefire. The Chapter 7 resolution is, okay, I told you to stop shooting. Now I'm coming in. And hopefully it won't get there. And, maybe this is the break everyone needs, 'cause then it won't be World War III. Um, you know, uh, and Israel's pulling the troops out, which is a good thing. So, um, that's all I want to talk about today. Um, Everybody have a nice day. And if you get a chance to check out some of my material here, um, The Battle of Fletcher, The Arrows by Duane Fletcher talks about Napoleon versus Russia 200 years ago, in contrast to what's going on today in Ukraine. The Nibbleniks talks about these twin Russian hitmen that came to Jacksonville and started all this trouble um, many years ago. This is a really good book also, The Nibbleniks. And the one that's causing all the controversy, The Black Hand, by Duane Fletcher. The Black Hand is a really good book also. Tennis pro allegedly doubling as an assassin for the KGB, and this is a pretty good book. So and not to mention, I got a chapter 2 coming out. It's going to be called The Black Hand Chapter 2, El Nino. Um, So if you get a chance to, please um, pick up some of the books, okay? I think that's all I had to say. BLURB.com, BLURB.com, BLURB.com. Duane Fletcher on BLURB.com, BLURB.com, BLURB.com. All right, everybody, have a nice day, and I'm out.